everybody, and welcome to the third episode of the Toro Boxing Podcast. I am your host, Carlos Toro. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you and welcome to the Toro Boxing Podcast. A little bit different podcast as far as video presentation is concerned. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, obviously to my left, we have results, schedules of upcoming fights and past fights from this past week. And we also got what I like to call my own version of the ESPN bottom line. Down below, we have because the Toro Boxing Podcast bottom line, if you want to call it that, don't really have much of an official name, but it's where you get news and little bit of tidbits from the world of boxing. A ton of stuff over here, a little bit different. Instead of just me talking to a camera for 30-40 minutes, sometimes over an hour, as the last couple of shows have been. But thank you and welcome to the Toro Boxing Podcast. Now that we kind of got all sort of the pleasantries and explanations out the way, one thing that I do want to mention, first of all, if you are someone who are tuning into this YouTube channel, Carlos Toro Media, I highly encourage you to subscribe and like this video and comment, share your thoughts. Any feedback, positive or negative, would be greatly appreciated. We got tons of stuff in boxing on this channel. We got already the interview with Erickson Lubin, and we will play that interview again here on this show. We also got Jessica McCaskill, Angela Leo. We got a ton of stuff. You know, the Jamal Charlo. We have the Sergey Derevyanchenko. We have a ton of names that I've spoken to on this podcast, and you're going to be hearing a few more throughout this show, including King Tug Bayar, his opponent Kobaya Brady, Jose Pedraza, Javier Molina. They were all in separate Zoom press conferences, Zoom media calls yesterday on Thursday, September 2017, I should say. And I was able to participate in them, got to talk to them for a couple of minutes, and you'll be hearing them throughout this show. But without further ado, here is the Toro Boxing Podcast, Episode 3. Not as news heavy this time around as the last one, because obviously we have to cover the Canelo Alvarez DAZN situation, but this one, it's not going to be news heavy. It's going to be very, very fight preview heavy, and there's a couple of good fights on this card, one of which I don't even know if it's even going to happen. We'll get to that in just a little second, but even though I did say this was not a news heavy show, I did wanted to point out that throughout this week, Matchroom Boxing has unveiled its next set of shows in the UK. No venue yet, as they are trying to sort of figure out if they can have fans attend those shows. So no, it looks like no more Matchroom Fight Camp, which is a damn shame, because those Matchroom Fight Camp shows, oh boy, they have been spectacular. Some fantastic fights, great visual setting. The presentation was superb. I said this from the very beginning. I think that the Matchroom Fight Camp shows have been the best boxing shows since the pandemic. It may not be the most popular shows. It may not have been watched by a ton of people, but I thought, in my opinion, collectively, they were the best shows among the big promotions, whether you're including Top Rank or PBC, all the boxing entities out there that have been holding shows since the pandemic. But a couple of fights, interesting fights, I should add, that were announced. So let's run down real quick the schedule. So you got October 4th, Joshua Bowatsi versus Marco Callig. Not a spectacular fight, but Joshua Bowatsi is a damn good prospect. I think he's going to be someone that in a couple of years could contend for a title, but we'll see. It's going to be another, in my opinion, another stay busy fight. Not one I'm particularly too excited about. We do have a world title fight. Chantel Cameron versus Adriana Dos Santos Araujo for the vacant WBC junior welterweight title, the women's junior welterweight title, in case that was it caused any confusion. You got Alan Babic, my new favorite heavyweight from Croatia, who, if you haven't seen his fight, if you have not seen his post-fight interview from Matchroom Fight Camp, I think it was Matchroom Fight Camp 3. I think it was the third one. It was one of the Matchroom Fight Camp shows. But if you're not seen that fight and his post-fight interview, it is the stuff of legends. I love him. He's only 4-0 as a heavyweight, but man, he's quickly becoming one of my favorite heavyweight prospects today. And you got obviously Akib Fiaz, Kane Baker, John Hedges making his pro debut. Not a ton of interesting names here, but there's a couple of potential gems in here. October 17, Louis Ritzen versus Miguel Vazquez. That fight has been in the works for a very, very long time. It's an okay fight, nothing too spectacular. But the one fight I am very interested in is Savannah Marshall versus Hannah Rankin for the vacant WBO middleweight title. So from the looks of things, it appears that this means that Claressa Shields is no longer the undisputed champion, as far as I understand it, because Claressa Shields has been the undisputed middleweight champion for a very long time, but it's, you know, the title situation in women's boxing, it's a very, very weird one. As I mean, we have an undisputed welterweight champion who's also not too long ago was also a unified champion at junior welterweight. So it's an interesting. I like this fight. Savannah Marshall is someone I'm fairly high on, and Hannah Rankin is someone who's been at the top, who has been fighting some very good names throughout her career. This is going to be a very good litmus test for Savannah Marshall. I think she's going to win, in my opinion. I think she's going to be the champ, but this is a good one. This is a good one. I think this will show us a lot about Savannah Marshall. I wouldn't quite say Hannah Rankin at this point in her career would say you could call an elite fighter in her weight class, but she is still very good, very dangerous, very experienced as far as fighting big names. And then you have a bunch of fights that aren't really complete. Joe Laws, Cash Farouk, Thomas Patrick Ward, all up against the dreaded TBA. So we still don't know who they're fighting up against. But the big fight that was announced, and we kind of expected this to happen, but I didn't quite expect this to happen so soon. November 21, Alexander Povetkin, Dillian Whyte 2. This is a very, very weird fight to sort of analyze, because Dillian Whyte was knocked out, and he was knocked out cold in the first fight against Alexander Povetkin, which, funny, it wasn't even a month ago. Like, it's only been a few weeks, and they were already able to secure and get a date for the rematch, which is incredible. You don't see that in boxing nowadays. It's weird. I really don't know how to make sense of this. I mean, Dillian Whyte 2, and first of all, this was in the U.S., both Dillian Whyte and Alexander Povetkin, they had gotten medical suspensions for maybe 2 months, which meant that they wouldn't be able to even have training camp during that suspension. And now they already got a rematch 3 months, not even 3 months after the first fight, in which one of them was knocked out hard and the other one was dropped twice in the round before. So I don't like this fight for Dillian Whyte. Alexander Povetkin is carrying all the confidence, all the momentum in the world, and he already has a bit of a blueprint for taking out Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte, for the last few years, has been in some tremendous fight. But the one thing I worry about Dillian Whyte is the toll that he has had throughout the years. He's fought a lot of hard-hitting names. He's fought guys that have dropped Dillian Whyte multiple times. He's fought Oscar Rivas. He's fought Derek Chisora. He's fought Joseph Parker. And, you know, those names, they were hitting some good shots on Dillian Whyte. I even remember the Joseph Parker fight. Joseph Parker made it super close and dropped Dillian Whyte on the canvas in the 12th round. So it's getting back to the ring so soon. I would not advise Dillian Whyte to go through with this fight, at least not this soon, because Dillian Whyte is now in a very vulnerable position. Sure, you could say he has nothing to lose. He has a lot to lose. Let's not forget, this guy was so close to getting a world title shot, a WBC heavyweight title shot against the winner of Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 3. And the winner of the fight was going to fight Dillian Whyte. And that is still that still could potentially be in play. I mean, the pandemic and everything has sort of thrown the title situation in a bit of a mess. So the winner of this fight could actually still reasonably get the winner of Fury Wilder 3. Because let's be honest, I really don't think we're going to get Joshua versus Fury Wilder winner in 2021, or at the very least in the first half of 2021. I think we're gonna wait until the whole pandemic, well, not the whole pandemic being over, but at the very least we're at a position where they can allow like tens of thousands of people, and I don't just mean the low 10,000s, I mean in like the 30, 40s, 50,000s in the UK for before they make that fight, because that is a mega fight. And as much as I would love to just have that fight, it is a big enough of an event where the promoters might potentially hold off on it just until they can get fans in. Even Fury Wilder 3, Bob Arum is already trying to secure that fight with fans. He's already trying to see if that baby can have spectators to watch. But I don't know how much I don't think that this is such a good idea for Dillian Whyte. If Povetkin looks about as sharp as he has looked in years, he's coming off a very good performance against Michael Hunter. He knocked out Dillian Whyte, and for as much as people like to say that Dillian Whyte's overrated, he only lost once again. He only got stopped once by Anthony Joshua within the last few years, and he has been on this tremendous run. But it almost felt like it was a long time coming, just getting Dillian Whyte on the canvas and not getting back up. So I don't know where his head is at. I don't advise him from a physical and a mental standpoint, and from a boxing standpoint. You look at Alexander Povetkin, yes, he's old, but he carries a lot of power. He definitely has been able to dissect Dillian Whyte, because if you look at that first fight, Dillian Whyte was dropping Alexander Povetkin, yes, but Povetkin was able to sort of start sneaking away the left hand, the uppercut, and started to notice that is the money shot there for Dillian Whyte, for Alexander Povetkin, I should say. And it almost felt like it was a matter of time before we got to that point. Obviously, we weren't thinking that after Povetkin was knocked down twice. But for Povetkin, it almost looked like everything was being set up for him to knock out Dillian Whyte in such an impressive fashion. I don't know how you can change Dillian Whyte's skill set in such a short amount of time that would allow him to just end the fight quickly before Alexander Povetkin can adjust and can catch on to what Whyte is doing. So I don't know. I'll right now pick Alexander Povetkin to win this one. Maybe it definitely won't be a knockout in the few rounds. I think this will be a much longer fight. I think this could potentially be a fight that will go to the scorecards, but I do expect one, maybe both of these guys get dropped at some point during the fight, because these guys are not, don't have the greatest chins in the world, and they each carry a ton of power. This will be a good fight. I think this will be a really, really good rematch, but I do worry a lot about Dillian Whyte and where his head is at. But now we're kind of moving on to that. That's November. Now let's move on to what we got this weekend. And this weekend, it's an interesting one. We got a Showtime card, we got an ESPN Plus card, but the Showtime card, let's get into that, because before I hit record, I am recording this on September 18. Right before I hit record, I get a news alert. Juan Carlos Abreu, who was supposed to fight Juan in the opening fight of the Showtime card tomorrow, comes in at 150 plus pounds. That's more than 3 pounds above the welterweight limit. And it just baffles me how someone like him could... By the way, if you have not checked out Juan Carlos Abreu and the Zoom call yesterday. I'm sure it's up there somewhere on YouTube. Guy cut a hell of a promo when it comes to his journey getting here in a very insane manner. He was talking about how he wanted one of these two fighters to get knocked down. Like, he didn't want this to go to the scorecard, but it wasn't like he was saying, I'm going to knock him out. No, he said, one of us is going to knock each other out. Hell, I think I'll probably prefer if we'll knock each other out. Like, that's not something you hear every day in boxing, but I don't know if that fight's gonna happen. I don't have, my usual resources and articles to go check up right now, and I don't think they haven't made a decision what's gonna happen with that fight. If they scrap that fight, a damn shame, because that would have been a real good test. It was a good step up for Juan, who I consider is one of the best welterweight prospects out there today, alongside Vergil Ortiz Jr. Although, you know what, I've said this before, you can say he's a prospect, but I think we're at the point where I can consider Vergil Ortiz and Juan to be contenders. I really do think that I would have no problem putting them up against top 15, top 10 guys in the welterweight division today, even with their general lack of experience. But yeah, it's a damn shame. But if that fight is scrapped, I don't know if they have any other fights lined up. I have not seen anything about backups for that fight, and that leaves Showtime with just 2 fights. Luckily, all 4 fighters in the other 2 fights were able to make weight, and you will get to hear from 3 of those 4 fighters that are going to be fighting on tomorrow's Showtime card for sure, barring, well, anything regarding COVID. But I did speak to King Tug Nyambayar and to his opponent Kobaya Brady. They're both going to be fighting in a featherweight matchup on Showtime tomorrow, and it's a very interesting fight. Nyambayar is coming off the loss to Gary Russell Jr., and I said this from the very beginning. I said this is one of those cases where I can see Nyambayar improve, or at least take something away from that experience from fighting Gary Russell Jr. I've said this with a few guys. There are a few guys who may not have won their first world title fights, but they'll get better. Like, sometimes it's not even explainable, but they're going to get better. And I've said this with a number of guys and a number of boxers from the very beginning. There are people that do improve after losing a fight like that. Sergey Derevianchenko, he was in a close fight to Danny Jacobs, and he made a strong case in the fight against Golovkin. I thought Derevianchenko looked better in that fight than he did against Danny Jacobs. Jojo Diaz, he lost to Gary Russell Jr., and look where he is right now. He beat Tevin Farmer and became the IBF Super Featherweight Champion. Jessica McCaskill, she lost to Katie Taylor, then she became a unified champion at 140, and then she beat Cecilia Braekhus to become the undisputed champion at 147. So I think this is another case of Nyambayar being that next person that loses a title fight and gets better from that experience. However, his opponent, Kobaya Brady, not a ton of people know about him. He's only 15-0 from Barbados. He's an interesting character. He's the fan-friendly style, very aggressive. I love his confidence when we were talking about some of the names that he kind of takes inspiration from. He calls it the 7 styles of boxing. And he's saying he takes elements from all these different fighters. When he says he got a little bit of Joe Frazier in him, a little bit of Manny Pacquiao, a little bit of Timothy Bradley. That's a really, really interesting one. And we got to speak to Nyambayar and to Kobaya Brady about this matchup. And I think both of these guys are locked in. I love Kobaya Brady's confidence, and I'm excited for this fight. I think this will be a nice little hidden gem when it's all said and done. Obviously, speaking a little bit more on the change in opponent, obviously you were originally supposed to fight Eduardo Ramirez in a WBC featherweight title eliminator, but obviously from all the press release and everything, it doesn't look like this is a title eliminator anymore. Was there a part of you that's kind of disappointed in that fact that it's no longer title eliminator?
Title eliminator fish for the team. Book meeting the team got Genate. Camel taking to those
disappointed.
No,
I feel good. Oh man, just focus on the fight. Focus.
How much have you sort of spent time sort of reflecting on the loss of Gary Russell Jr.? How much have you sort of had to sort of look at what you did that night and just think to yourself, like, there may be some things that you can do and improve upon that could work if you were to fight Gary Russell Jr. again?
Chigero Beras the Takan Doctor, you will watch Yaman Tao Yung Hiku, Isu and Hiku.
Remotely,
I'll change everything.
I will change everything. I will beat him for sure.
Thanks, King Tug. Looking forward to seeing you in the ring this Saturday.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for taking time to talk to me. Really appreciate it. Obviously, I think you mentioned earlier that you were supposed to fight, or you were planning to fight on September 26th. And obviously with this fight against Nyambayar being just days away, did that sort of change a little bit your preparation and your mental state when it comes to, now getting to fight a week earlier against a tough opponent in Nyambayar?
No, I mean, I always stay in the gym. Like I said, we live in the gym. I'm always getting great sparring from all different types of athletes, like Sean Porter, Isaac Dogbay, and guy named Max from the gym. I even been in camp with Gary Russell. So me stepping up to I've been around champs. I've been around world champs, so I know what it takes for me to get to the next level.
And lastly, earlier you were talking about something that you call the 7 styles of boxing, and I just wanted to ask, sort of, where did that came from? Like, was it simply you wanting to emulate as many different styles and just being a fighter that can adapt to any situation as possible, or where did that all come from?
It all comes from love of seeing what other boxers was doing, like the Floyd Mayweather, his style, and then the Joe Frazier, and then the Muhammad Ali, then the Roy Jones, and then the Pacquiao style. It's just I fell in love with all of that, and I work on that because I want to be an ultimate fighter. I want to be unbeatable, and I want to be a hard guy to figure out.
Thanks, Gubaya, and best of luck this Saturday against Nyambayar.
Thanks.
But of course, let's move on to the main event. Erickson Lubin versus Terrell Gausha. Terrell Gausha coming into this fight off that draw against Austin Trout. He lost to Erislan de Lara in 2017 at the Barclays Center in a fight that I still describe as one of the worst title fights I've ever seen in my life. Just a fight that literally drove people away in the thousands. Like, you look at that fight. You look at that event actually in 2017 at the Barclays Center. I believe it was October 2017. There were like 10,000 people at the co-main event. And then when it came to the main event, by the end of the main event, Lara versus Gaucher, less than half of the people that were in the co-main event were there. That's how bad and that's how boring that fight was. But he's been able to sort of bounce back fairly well. But his opponent, Erickson Lubin, has, in my opinion, bounced back even better and has looked about as good as one could look in the wake of a first-round knockout loss to Jermell Charlo on the same night that Terrell Gausha lost to Erislan de Lara. That's something a lot of people don't remember. Both Lubin and Gaucher suffered their first pro defeats in title fights in humiliating fashion in completely different ways on that very same night in the same venue on the same broadcast. So it's a nice little journey, a nice little finale to. It's not even a rivalry, but it's gotten personal and gotten pretty heated on social media over the last couple of months really throughout the whole year, if you really want to look back and look back on both their social medias. So last week, I got to talk to Erickson Lubin, and we spoke a lot about the fight, what it means to him, what we could see in this fight against Terrell Gausha, what his expectations are when it comes to the upcoming Jermell Charlo Jason Rosario fight, of which the fight that we have this Saturday will be a title eliminator for the winner of Lubin versus Gaucher. Will be the WBC mandatory for the winner of Jason Rosario versus Jermell Charlo. And if the winner of Lubin Gaucher gets that fight immediately, the winner of Lubin and Gaucher is going to be fighting for 3 belts. And essentially, whoever's going to be the number 1 fighter at 154 pounds. No offense to Patrick Teixeira, but let's be honest, Jason Rosario and Jermell Charlo are the top 2 dogs at 154 pounds at this moment. And given how unpredictable this division is and has been for the last few years, it's not unreasonable to think that the winner of Lubin Gaucher just beats the winner of Jason Rosario versus Jermell Charlo. And we asked Erickson Lubin about all of these things in my interview recorded last week, and so here it is. My chat with Erickson Lubin. Hey everybody, Carlos Toro here. I'm joined on the line by one of the top junior middleweight contenders in boxing today, Erickson Lubin. He's going to be facing Terrell Gausha in a WBC title eliminator September 19 on Showtime. Erickson, thanks so much for taking time to talk to me. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't really complain much. So yeah, thanks so much for taking time to talk to me. And first of all, just one thing I wanted to ask before we kind of get into the fight itself. I remember reading a Twitter post from you from a few months ago that said, you know, you're not going to get a haircut until you get a fight date. And did you really go that long without getting a haircut? How long did your hair get?
Man, I broke, man. I ain't gonna lie, I broke because that pandemic started. I wasn't hearing nothing, so that was before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But I probably went about 2-3 months without a haircut. I was looking crazy. I ended up getting a haircut. But usually when I'm in camp, I don't get a haircut, so I haven't got a haircut in about 10 weeks.
Oh, okay, not bad. It certainly did a lot better than I did. So obviously now that we're finally so close to the fight, how does it feel to just get back into the rhythm of things and just preparing for a fight and just kind of get that sense of normalcy that really we haven't been able to get throughout the pandemic?
It feels good. It feels good that things got back rolling. I'm looking to put on a great performance. I hope everyone's at home. Gonna be watching. It feels good, man. I'm excited. I'm definitely excited to get back in the ring, especially after my last performance.
So how hard was it for you during this training camp just to sort of change things around, adjusting to the pandemic, and just overall just kind of have just these struggles that come with, whether or not, going to the gyms and maybe having to adjust your day-to-day life during this pandemic?
Well, I was able to stay in the gym. Because over here we got a private little setup, so we were able to stay clean, stay in the gym. But we just turned things up a notch when we actually got the date and got into camp mode. But it was a little difficult at first because can't be around certain people, and then you gotta sacrifice and stay away from sometimes even some family members, and it was difficult at first, but got used to it, and it's all gonna be worth it next Saturday.
So now we're moving on to the fight. Obviously Terrell, very, very good fighter, has fought a number of very solid names, and coming out that draw against Austin Trout, how do you kind of view this fight, and what is kind of your assessment of Terrell Gausha at this point of his career?
I feel like it's a fight that we both actually need. It's a fight. We both have just one loss, and we're both trying to get back into title contention. So this is the mandatory spot. This is for the mandatory spot with the WBC, and I'm going in there. I'm going in there with with that on my mind. I definitely want to get back into them titles, and I want to take over the division, and not just the division. I want to take over boxing. So I'm looking to have a spectacular performance. That way, they can't doubt me. There's no doubt. There's no doubt in me, and I could get back to fighting for not just one title this time, but all the titles.
As you mentioned, obviously this is the WBC Title Eliminator, and how motivated are you this time around, especially now that it appears that you're very, very close to getting that second title shot? For a while, I don't know if you thought that maybe you weren't gonna get another title shot for a long time, or you were going to be back into contention. But how satisfying does it feel to finally be back in this spot and be so close to another world title shot?
I mean, it's definitely satisfying, and it was worth it all. I wasn't one of those guys they picked out of the line. Like those other guys, those champions are picking them out of the line and saying, I want to fight this dude, I want to defend my title against this dude. I wasn't one of those guys. So I had to take the hard route. I had to take the elimination bouts and then the final eliminators, and now I'm fighting for the mandatory spot. I had to take those type of fights to get back to where so I definitely deserve every bit of the title shot. After I take care of Terrell Gausha, I deserve it because I went the whole route. So they can't say I was handpicked.
Obviously, I've been sort of following a little bit the social media back and forth that you and Terrell has had a while ago. Do you feel that this fight is a little bit more personal, given not just the stakes involved, but also who it is up against? Do you feel like this is a little more personal and maybe a little more of a motivating factor for you heading into this fight? Definitely
a motivating factor, and a little bit personal because he had some words to say. I had some words to say, and I'm gonna let my hands do the talking now. We're 1 week away from the fight, or from being over there at least. We're just a little bit over a week to the fight, but it's a little bit personal to me because he thinks he could beat me, and I'm gonna show him that he can't fuck with me, man. Excuse my language, but I'm just gonna show him that. Show him that much.
Do you believe that a knockout win is a bigger statement, especially to the two champions that are going to be fighting on pay-per-view very, very soon, Jermell Charlo and Jason Rosario? Or do you feel like a win is enough, or do you feel like a statement needs to be made with a knockout?
I mean, I love making statements. I'm going in there. I'm looking to make a statement. I'm definitely looking to make a statement. Whether it's a shutout performance, a shutout unanimous win, or if it's a knockout. If the knockout presents itself, then cool. I'm definitely gonna take full advantage. I'm gonna knock his ass out. But we got a game plan. I'm gonna follow the game plan. We got the game plan drawn up, and I can't wait to fight. These interviews are cool, but man, I'm ready to fight.
Obviously, you're on this 4-5 win streak. You've beaten Nathaniel Gallimore. You've beaten Ishii Smith. You've beaten Zachariah too. And to me, it almost felt like you're a much better fighter, or at least a more confident fighter, heading into this fight than when you were fighting Jermell Charlo a few years back. And obviously, when you look back at that fight, how do you kind of assess yourself now compared to back then? Did you feel like maybe that was a fight that, looking back, you kind of took it a little bit too soon in your career?
I mean, a lot of people say that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could take that from it, but I'm different now. I'm a much more different fighter. I'm more seasoned. My IQ is way better. My power's there. I'm growing into my man strength. I might be 25 years old. I feel great, man. I'm a way different fighter since. If you go back and look at my tapes from 2017, 2016, and look at my fights from my last 4 fights, I'm a much more different fighter.
Did you feel that maybe that loss sort of kind of opened your eyes a little bit and made you realize some things needed to be changed, and maybe you sort of need to get back into the drawing board and make sure you're a much better fighter, better prepared for when you get that next title shot?
Yeah, for sure. I knew that I needed to make some changes, and I just needed to get out of my hometown. And I got with Kevin Cunningham, and he just brought my game to another level. He got my IQ levels, at an all-time high. I just feel like my game's at an all-time high. I feel like I'm young, man. I'm young, and I'm ready to show that I'm one of the best in this weight class, if not the best.
How important, how vital has Kevin Cunningham, as you just mentioned, been to your development, especially in the last couple of years? Because obviously Kevin Cunningham, one of the best trainers, in my opinion, in the sport right now. So how vital has he been in this win streak?
Man, very, very vital. He's a hands-on trainer, man. He's there every step of the way throughout training camp. Everything, man. He's behind me in the car when I go run. He's with me at personal training, and he's there in the boxing gym going hands-on work. We work on a game plan. We work on it nonstop. It just becomes, like we do it so repetitious that it's muscle memory, and everything we do is just like it has a reason behind it. And, he's been big help in my career, not just inside, but also outside the ring. So, just having him in my corner is a big confidence booster.
Do you sort of have a final prediction as to maybe what round you want to finish off Terrell Gausha? Is there an idea in mind of when you think this is going to be the round that I'm going to finish Terrell Gausha?
I don't have no specific round. Like I said, let's just capitalize off his mistakes. When he makes a mistake, I'm gonna capitalize off of it, and I'll be able to do some damage from there. If it's a shutout win, it's a shutout win. If I knock him out, I'm gonna knock his ass out.
Lastly,
if he makes a mistake, I'm gonna knock him out.
All right, lastly, do you have a prediction, or is there a favorite in your mind in between Jermell Charlo and Jason Rosario? Do you want the Jermell Charlo rematch, or do you kind of prefer whoever comes out on top with the 3 world titles, that's who you want to face?
Whoever comes out with the 3 world titles is who I want to face. But I do think Charlo will beat him.
All right, Erickson, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. Best of luck in your fight against Terrell Gausha on Showtime, and best of luck in your career. Looking forward to seeing you back in the ring.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos.
And we're back, and I got to tell you, I really am rooting for Erickson Lubin. I have not made this a secret. I've been a big fan of Erickson Lubin and how he's been fighting in the last few fights. I love the win against Nathaniel Gallimore and the win against Ishii Smith. He's been on a roll, and he really has become what many of us believed he could be when they first put him in that title shot against Jermell Charlo. Looking back, hindsight being 2020, I think it was too early for Erickson Lubin to get that title shot, but he has done a great job with learning from that fight and improving upon his skill set, and Kevin Cunningham, his trainer, deserves a lot of credit for that as well. If you ask my prediction, I believe Erickson Lubin will win this fight. Terrell Gausha is a tough enough of a fighter to maybe make it the distance, but I am not betting against Erickson Lubin's power, his momentum. I think that we're going to see a late stoppage. I think we're going to see Erickson Lubin win this fight and become the mandatory challenger to Jermell Charlo versus Jason Rosario on that fight on September 26th. But that was the Showtime portion of things. We got the ESPN Plus portion of things. Not a whole ton of fights that, the masses will like, but the main event, Jose Pedrosa versus Javier Molina. It's an interesting fight. It's a crossroads fight, especially for Jose Pedrosa. He has alternated wins and losses for the last couple of years. It's been a very winding road for Jose Pedrosa after he lost to Gervonta Davis, and he got dominated. by Gervonta Davis. He went up to 135, and not a lot of people believe that he could win a title at 135. And then he surprised folks by beating Raimundo Beltran to win the WBO title. And then give a spirited effort against Vasily Lomachenko. Didn't do, he's done, Pedrosa did a lot better than some of these other guys that Lomachenko has faced. I'll give him that. And then went up to 140. And then he lost to Jose Zepeda, was able to bounce back and get the win against Mick Lapierre in an impressive and dominating fashion in a fight that I thought that was going to be a little closer than what we ended up getting a couple of months ago. And I like this fight. Javier Molina coming into this fight as well is someone who has been one of a very underrated fighter, so to speak. He carries a very good amateur pedigree. He kind of has a sort of a similar journey to a guy like Yordenis Ugas. He took a break from the ring, from boxing, was away for a couple of years after he lost to Jamal James, bounced back, is on this big win streak, has won 5 in a row, and he got a couple of nice wins. Like, just looking at this, he's beaten Hiroki Okada and Amir Iman. Those are not two names you can just easily beat. Iman and Okada were tough fighters. Maybe not necessarily elite, but they are good. They are solid fighters. And the winner of this fight will not get a title shot anytime soon. Maybe not even get a title shot in 2021. But obviously things change, plans change with the title situation, and with Top Rank being in possession of all 4 titles on all 4 belts at 140, the winner of the fight between Pedraza and Molina, they could factor in maybe, especially into the Jose Ramirez side of things, because Jose Ramirez has the has the mandatory against Jack Catterall. And then the plan is to try to get the fight against Josh Taylor after he's done with his mandatories to crown a new undisputed champion at 140 pounds. So, until we get to that point, it's very possible, Jose Ramirez might take a fight in the interim before Josh Taylor, because Josh Taylor might be busy, or that fight never happens. It's possible, and it's a sad reality, and it's a sad chance that that we may never get the Taylor versus Ramirez fight, or at the very least, not anytime soon. So maybe, especially Pedraza could sneak in to a potential fight against Jose Ramirez if he does beat Javier Molina. Or vice versa. Javier Molina has, as I mentioned, been on a good win streak. Got a couple of names on his record since he came back. Beating Jose Pedraza, pretty notable win. Guys won world titles at 130 and 135 pounds. And he's fought some damn good names. So it'll be an interesting fight, but I'm very, very excited for it nonetheless. We also got on the undercard Efe Ajagba, the Nigerian heavyweight prospect. You've seen him on PBC for a couple of years now. But you may not have known that Efe Ajagba signed a deal with Top Rank, so he's now officially a member of the Bob Arum heavyweight stable. And he's going to be facing Jonathan Rice. It's going to be a showcase fight for Ajagba. I think Ajagba is a heavyweight prospect to look out for. I think he's still in that prospect stage where maybe he still needs a little bit more seasoning, but he's going to be good. I've seen enough to know that he belongs in this current crop of phenomenal heavyweight prospects, from Daniel Dubois to Joe Joyce to Filip Hrgovic to Guido Vianelli. There's a lot of great heavyweight prospects out there, and I do think that Efe Ajagba is gonna look good. Not necessarily gonna catapult him to a title shot. I don't think he's gonna be touching a world title anywhere soon. Not in 2020, not in 2021, maybe summer 2022 if everything pans out for Ajagba. And then we also got Wbc Ramirez facing on Felix Caraballo. There's an interesting wrinkle into that fight. Wbc Ramirez has looked very good ever since he lost his pro debut. And he's going up against a guy in Felix Caraballo who, a couple of months ago, was the opponent for Shakur Stevenson on the first top-ranked show in the bubble. Wbc Ramirez and Shakur Stevenson share a lot of history together in the amateurs. And Wbc Ramirez has made it no secret that he wants to fight Shakur Stevenson down the line. I'm not saying that Felix Caraballo is being brought in to sort of further create and push that narrative of a potential Shakur Stevenson versus Wbc Ramirez fight, but it's an interesting thing to watch out for. Wbc Ramirez has looked damn good ever since he lost his pro debut against Adam Gonzalez. He's won most of his fights by inside the distance. Then he fought Adam Gonzalez and he dominated. He pitched a shutout against Gonzalez in the rematch inside the bubble. This will be his third fight in 4 months, and I like the activity for Wbc Ramirez. He's 26. He's entering his physical prime as an athlete. You want to make the most out of it and keep giving him fights and keep improving on him. This will not tell me if even a Wbc was able to beat Caraballo in quicker fashion than Shakur Stevenson, it doesn't quite tell me that Wbc is ready for a title shot. I think we may still need a couple of more fights against better names to sort of get a better feel for what Wbc is all about in the pro ranks. But I do like what I see so far from the Cuban amateur star. But I did tease earlier in the show that I did talk to Pedraza and Molina. And I think it's about time we got to talk to both Pedraza and Molina about their fight on Saturday on ESPN+. So without further ado, here is Jose Pedraza and Javier Molina. Hi, Javier. Thanks so much for taking time to talk to us. First of all, have you had a chance to sort of check out Jose Pedraza's fights in the bubble? I know he's had the fight against Miguel where he looked pretty good in that 10-rounder. You sort of had a chance to check that fight out and see how Pedraza has looked so far?
Yeah, well, we've actually been watching him a lot during my whole camp, but not so much the Lapierre. We've seen a few times the Lapierre, but I just feel like Lapierre's style is completely different from mine. He's a little more flat-footed. He looked good against Lapierre. He did what he had to do, won clearly, but we're looking more like guys like Cepeda when he followed Machenko, or different styles. I mean, he has similar rhythm to the fights, but yeah, we've been studying all his fights.
How different has this training camp been for you in terms of preparation and sort of dealing with all the COVID guidelines and everything? Has sparring been an issue with trying to find people to spar and prepare for this fight?
No, it actually hasn't. We're all right there in LA where there's gyms everywhere. There's sparring partners everywhere. But thankfully for us, the gym that we originally trained at was closed, but we had somebody else that had a gym. So we rented it out. It was a back house. So training camp went smooth. We had no problems, and we're happy with our training camp went.
Hi, Jose. Thanks so much for taking time to talk to us. You know, before the fight against Mick Lepierre, you were out of the ring for almost a year, and now you're back in your second fight in 2 months. How important was it for you to sort of stay active, especially during these uncertain times? And just just how are you feeling physically coming out of a 10-rounder against Mick Lepierre and then coming back 2 months later?
En estos tiempos de pandemia, ¿te has mantenido bastante activo? Esta es tu segunda pelea, tuviste una pelea 10 rounds en julio contra Lepierre, ahora vienes a esta pelea con Molina. ¿Cómo te sientes de estar activo durante estos tiempos?
Bueno, pues me siento muy bien, eso era lo que queríamos, estar más activo en mi carrera, ya que anteriormente pues no pudimos estar muy activos. Mi carrera era para estar más adelantada y eso es lo que queremos, estar bien activos para seguir buscando el sueño, que es el tercer título en mi tercera división.
I feel great, fighting so active, fighting so close to one fight from another. I love the activity. That's the way I like it. Before I couldn't do that, but now that I'm with Top Rank, I'm being way more active. And that's gonna make me closer. That's gonna make me look better. It's gonna make me get a world title opportunity, and that's the dream I'm chasing. I want to become a world champion at 140, so I can join the club of 3-division world champions from Puerto Rico.
You mentioned, being in your third weight class. I mean, how different does it feel now, sort of making weight and the preparations to get to 140 pounds compared to when you were fighting at 135 and 130 pounds when you did win world titles at those classes?
Como mencionaste, esta es tu tercera división. ¿Cómo te sientes para estas preparaciones? A diferencia de cuando te preparabas para las 30 o 35, esas divisiones donde llegaste a ganar títulos mundiales.
Pues mira, me he preparado muy bien, definitivamente. Como en las dos divisiones anteriores, simplemente pues que he incorporado otras cosas, como el ciclismo, la natación, mucho masaje, mucha terapia, ¿verdad? Simplemente más vida sana.
My preparation for this division has basically been the same. I have added a couple of other things. I have added cycling. I have added swimming. A little bit more massages just to recover. So yeah, I'm also living a little bit more a healthier life.
And now we're back to the final segment of the Toro Boxing Podcast, something that I like to call 3 things in boxing you may not have known. And the first one was a bit of news that took place last week, or a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't really get to talk much about it. As most Eagle Eye viewers may have seen last week that it was on the bottom line, but didn't really get to talk much about it. Akira Yagashi, the Japanese former world champion, announced his retirement. And I gotta tell you, for anybody who has never seen Akira Yagashi's fights, they are just so damn good. He's fought a number of names throughout his career that has been absolutely sensational. Pornsawan Porpramuk, phenomenal fight at Korakuen Hall in 2011. He's fought Kazuto Ioka. He's fought Chocolatito. He's fought guys like Milan Melindo and Moruti Mtolain. Guys won world titles in multiple weight classes. The guy is, in my opinion, a Hall of Famer. I think he's been in so many fantastic fights. He's been a champion. He has been in some absolute bangers. I mean, what more can you say about a guy who's pretty much a modern Japanese fighting legend, and Akira Yagashi? He announced his retirement. He's, and great for him. He's 37, gonna turn 38 in less than half a year from now. So good for him. Good for hanging up his gloves. I hope he has a tremendous life post-fight, post-fight life. And he's done. He's given the boxing world his all, and I cannot, and if you haven't seen Akira Yagashi fight, definitely go to YouTube, look up some of his fights. They are just simply phenomenal, and I really do wish him the very best. Another thing you may not have known, and this is kind of moving from the past to the future, is that Top Rank this weekend, I've mentioned some of the fights that are taking place tomorrow on the ESPN Plus card. But we got a couple of guys who are making their pro debuts at age 17. Both guys signed to Top Rank and making their pro debuts tomorrow. And I'm really, really excited. Yahi Tucker and Masi Goldston. Great prospects that Top Rank has signed, and I really, really can't wait to check that out. I mean, they are big, Top Rank and really boxing in general has really taken a liking to a lot of guys in their teens and signed them up. Top Rank already got guys like Sander Zayas. They got Gabe Flores, very, very young fighters. I'm really excited to see what these guys will be like in 5 years from now, because we've seen fighters start pro at age 18, age 17, age 19, and become like a massive success in their early 20s. Gervonta Davis and David Benavidez are two guys that immediately come to mind. Kosei Tanaka, another guy that also comes to mind that has also achieved tremendous success at such an early age in their pro fight career. So I'm excited to see what these two youngsters have in store. This is a very interesting Top Rank card tomorrow on ESPN Plus, and I really am excited. The last thing you may not have known, and it's something I didn't know until last night. So Dan Rafael posted on Twitter that this week was the anniversary of Felix Trinidad versus Yoriboy Campas, in which Trinidad retained his welterweight title by stopping Yoriboy Campas in a pretty good fight. It was a pretty damn good fight back in the 90s. One thing I did not know about Yoriboy Campas, because I kind of looked and say, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I remember Yoriboy Campas. Wonder what happened to his career. Boy, did he have a career. He fought for more than, and I'm not joking, he fought for more than 20 years after that fight against Tito Trinidad. And he went on to fight more than 60 times. He eclipsed the 100 career win mark. Has fought in several title fights against guys like Oscar De La Hoya, Fernando Vargas, Raul Marquez. He's fought Obakar, he's fought Hector Camacho. Hell, he fought Hector Camacho, and then in his next fight, he fought Camacho's son, which is unbelievable. And he's still fighting. Technically, he fought as recent as a couple of years ago, in his 40s, in his mid to late 40s, and I'm just thinking to myself, man, I knew that he had won a title, and I knew he had fought a number of names, but I didn't expect him to still be fighting this late into the 2010s. I don't know if he's retired. I would expect him to be retired at this point, unless... I mean, look, we got guys coming out of retirement left and right. We got a whole pandemic going on. We're fighting in bubbles. We're fighting in Eddie Hearn's backyard. Sure, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Yoriboy Campas decided, yeah, I'm still fighting and I'm not really retired, but interesting. It's an interesting thing that I did not know about Yoriboy Campas. 60 more fights after Felix Trinidad. There are some guys who call it a career less than half of 60 fights. I mean, this guy has had multiple careers in the span of one career. So, hats off to Yoriboy Campas for this long career, and hopefully it doesn't fight for too long, because I don't like seeing guys in their 40s and in their 50s still fighting. We've seen how ugly that could turn out. So I just hope he's not strapped for cash or anything like that, and he feels the need to fight just to be able to make some money and make ends meet. That was something. But that about wraps it up for this edition of the Toro Boxing Podcast. As I mentioned at the start of the show, hit the like button, comment, give me your feedback, positive or negative, on the show. What you think of the fights coming up this weekend? Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Carlos Toro Media, where I got interviews with several fighters from all across boxing. And I'm looking forward to next week's show. We're going to have Brandon Figueroa, who's going to be fighting on the Charlo Twins pay-per-view. You also get to hear from several of the fighters, including Jamal Charlo and Sergey Derevyanchenko, when I was at the Zoom press conference a couple of weeks back. So look forward to that. And until then, I'm Carlos Toro of the Toro Boxing Podcast, and I hope you have a good one.